during online discussions I've had with many people in our Instagram challenge community, it's been interesting to talk to people about going from automatic to manual mode. And many people, or some people, have said that they don't think they can do it, or they don't have the confidence, or they don't know how to do that. And it often struck me as something fundamentally simple in photography to use your camera in manual mode. But what manual mode gives you is that full control, if you like, of the settings on your camera, so that you can set the camera to whatever setting you want. And it might be because you want to be super creative with your shutter speed or aperture to try to get a different look to your image. And having thought about all that, I just thought it might be really helpful for me to give you my simple view on how easy it is to get from auto into manual, because I think it is really simple. I think you, me, and everyone can do it. I accept that if you are an experienced photographer, this video might be a bit simple for you and you might not want to watch it. But then again, if you are an experienced photographer, you might just want to see what my view is on how to get out of auto and onto manual. It might be helpful. If you've watched a few of my videos already and you've not subscribed, have you thought about subscribing? I would be really, really happy if you would subscribe to this channel. It would be fantastic. I'm really pleased that you've watched this video or got to this point anyway. And if you feel like you enjoy the videos I'm creating or get something out of them, I'd be very happy if you would subscribe to the channel. It really would make my day. So if you have, thank you very much indeed. What manual mode enables you to do is to change the settings on your camera. Fundamentally, the difference between automatic mode and manual mode is that when you're in manual, you can set the exposure of your camera however you want. What auto does, it reviews the light that's coming into your camera based on the metering mode that you've set. And most of us set our metering mode to center weighted, which means that the main central portion of your image, it looks at the light and determines how much exposure your image has. And it does that by looking at the greys, whether it's black on one sense or white on the other, everything in between. It doesn't look at color because it can't differentiate with the color so much, but it looks at the level of light gray and dark gray, and it makes an algorithm based on those different levels of gray and determines the best exposure for your image. And it will do that by starting out on an average aperture, let's say f8 as an example, and it will work from f8 and it will give you the correct ISO and the correct shutter speed. And that will determine what the parameters it gives your image. Now in manual mode, you can change that because you might not want to use f8, you might not want to use 1/50 of the second shutter, and you might not want to use base ISO. So what you can actually do is override those settings and set your camera to whatever you want. So for instance, you might want a really shallow depth of field, so you might go for f2.8, or you might want a really high shutter speed to take images of sports or wildlife so you can capture or freeze that image. Then you might want a really high shutter speed to compensate to capture that image. But what your auto mode won't do, it won't set that for you. It would set whatever the average modes are. What I want to do in this video is show you how really, really simple it is to set your camera in manual mode and consider what the exposure is of your camera, what the exposure is of the picture you're taking, and how easy it is for you to look at that exposure on the back of your camera using the camera's light meter, and where to place that light meter in your image so that you get a correctly exposed image. As I said, what you might not want the exposed image that the camera gives you, the right level of exposure that camera sets, because you might want to do something creative, have an image that's super, super dark or super, super light, or a really, really shallow depth of field or really a long depth of field. There might be lots of different reasons why you'd want to change the standard exposure that the camera's giving you. And hopefully I'll show you on the Canon, on the back of the Canon, just how simple it is to read that light meter and look at what the best exposure is based on what this camera is telling you. To get the exposure correct, I need to get that light meter in the middle of that line. So when it's on +2, that tells me that my image is very overexposed, or as it is now, flashing on -2, it tells me my image is very underexposed. I've got a few options here. The first one would be, simple thing is just to increase the ISO, and that as I increase the ISO, that would bring the light meter into the middle. So I'll just do that now, and I'll just multiply the ISO by 4, and let's see what that's done. That's not changed it at all. So I've moved the ISO. That's not had any impact on it whatsoever. So I've moved that right up to 1600. So that's not very good. So obviously that's still way too dark, this image. So what I'm going to do is I'll put the ISO back to as it was, and I will slow the shutter speed down to see how much effect that has on it. That's really takes it. So that I've got to go 1 second at f11 to get that exposure correct. So that's far too slow. I won't be able to hold my camera at that slow speed. What I'm actually going to do is reduce the aperture right down to as low as it can go. And let's see where that's taken us. That's way overexposed. So what that means I can then now do is bring the shutter speed back up to where it should be. So f4, 1/6 of a second. So it's still a bit slow. So what I will do is I'll change the ISO to ISO 200. So now we can see that's overexposed. So what I'm going to now do is bring the shutter speed faster until that gets to the middle. Now that's 1/13 of a second. That's better, but it's still not very good. So what I'm going to once again do is drop the ISO again, and now it's on at least to stop more. So I can bring that forward to 1/25 a second, and that's almost perfect. That's almost spot on. But still, I would like a faster shutter speed. So I'm going to change the ISO again. I'm going to double the ISO, and once again, that's gone back to that point. So I'm going to be able to spin it, and that's perfect. 1/50th a second at f5 4.5 is ideal. However, by doing that, I've got a really low or high ISO of 800. So the likelihood is my shot will be grainy. So I'm going to take that shot, and we'll have a look and see what that shot's like. So it's a pair of binoculars on a pretty bland grey background. So I can reduce the ISO again. Now we're going to reduce my shutter speed till it's low enough. That's too much. And I'm going to take that shot at 1/6 of a second. I could get away with that because the camera is sat on a table and it's not moving. So I could easily do that. But that's as simple as it is. So if you want to get into manual, get out of auto, all you've got to do is make sure that that is in the middle, and it's not to one side or the other. It's not underexposed in this instance, or it's not overexposed. Anywhere in the middle is good, but perfectly in the middle is ideal. Once again, thank you very much for watching this video. If this video is something you like, I'll be super, super pleased if you'd give it a like. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheerio.